Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on enhancing visibility and control, the goal of protecting corporate data from shadow AI. I'm excited to be here alongside some of my colleagues at Synergy Technical and Microsoft. Got Adrian Amos, who's a familiar face on a lot of the webinars that we put on, as well as Nab Riemann and Juhi Sharma from Microsoft to help facilitate the discussion. So we're really looking forward to diving in with you all. Before we get started, for those of you unfamiliar with Synergy Technical, I'll do a quick little intro on us and we can dive in. So we founded Synergy Technical in 2011 with a simple belief that the cloud was the future. And that vision has driven us from day one. We built our reputation by embracing disruptive technologies that transform how businesses operate. Today, we've been recognized as leaders in cloud security, productivity, and AI-driven solutions. Our team spans the US, Canada, and India, and we're proud to be a Microsoft 365 Security Deployment Partner of the Year. We're also a top 10 Microsoft licensing partner and one of just 25 nationally managed Microsoft partners. Our mission is to help organizations stay ahead in a rapidly changing technological landscape by anticipating trends, embracing innovation, and empowering our customers to succeed securely and effectively. With that out of the way, we can dive into the content for our webinar. So why visibility and control are absolutely essential in today's AI-driven workplace. We're seeing a rapid rise in shadow AI. You used to be shadow IT. Shadow AI is kind of the new term that's surfaced up, but it's essentially when employees use unapproved AI and SaaS tools without IT's knowledge or oversight. So this is not only from anecdotal experience. A recent industry report found that 65% of organizations admit their employees are using unauthorized AI tools, often by logging in with their personal credentials or using personal devices for work tasks. So with that in mind, it should be no risk or no surprise that this creates hidden risks. One real scenario involved an employee uploading sensitive customer data to a free AI tool to generate a report. They didn't realize that the data could be stored or processed outside the company controls. So that obviously created a blind spot and made it difficult for IT to monitor usage and manage the risks effectively. Ultimately, robust oversight is critical. By establishing strong governance, we strive to ensure AI adoption aligns with company policies, maintains security, and protects our most sensitive data. In the long run, visibility and control are the foundation for safe and successful AI integration in any organization. Now we'll talk briefly about specific risks that come with unmanaged AI tools. I briefly alluded to this earlier, but unmanaged AI tools may expose sensitive data. For instance, I was recently chatting with an organization in the manufacturing space that wanted to use AI-powered analytics to predict machine maintenance and improve yield. However, when some of their individual engineers started using consumer-grade AI tools to analyze production data, they inadvertently uploaded proprietary formulas and process data to external servers. This not only risked exposing trade secrets, but also created compliance headaches, as the company couldn't guarantee where the data was stored or who had access to it. So the lesson here, obviously, without centralized oversight and approved tools, organizations risk losing control over their most valuable intellectual property and operational data. On compliance challenges further, we've seen organizations in regulated industries like healthcare struggle when employees are using AI tools that aren't HIPAA compliant, which again risks legal penalties and reputational harm. Another consideration that we've seen is fragmented AI adoption, which can lead to inconsistent standards. We've seen scenarios where organizations have multiple teams using separate AI tools, and that results in duplicated efforts and confusion over which data is authoritative, what's the source of truth, and just causes confusion. For mitigation strategies, and this is something that Adrian will be diving into a little bit further, the answer lies in effective policies, comprehensive employee training, and robust monitoring tools. So by taking a proactive approach, we can manage these AI risks across the enterprise and ensure that innovation doesn't come at the expense of security or compliance. With that, I will pass it over to Adrian to dive a bit deeper on what these strategies look like under the hood. Adrian?
All right. Thank you, John. I do appreciate this opportunity to talk about some of the things that we have available to play with in the Microsoft security and compliance side of things. Um, Before I get too far into it, though, I just want to say that I think it's really interesting. I had not reviewed your content before we started this, and the fact that you grounded this in the legacy conversations around shadow IT, I think is really important actually for the way that I'm going to frame this conversation, because we actually can use kind of a light touch or a heavy touch approach, and that what I'll call the heavier touch approach actually leverages those tools that were initially designed to detect and control shadow IT. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started because I'm pretty excited about this. So if you have the entire Microsoft 365 security and compliance stack, if you've got the Defender XDR stack and the Purview stack running operationally together, you have the opportunity to pull components from both into a very robust and nuanced solution, right? Where you can be very heavy-handed against certain AI products that maybe you just don't ever want to see in your environment. You can collect signals and take that signal data and feed it to other solutions within that stack. But then you can also get into, on the Purview side, getting very nuanced and controlled. I'm going to call it the sword and the scalpel, right? So on the sword side, we have the Defender XDR side, taking actions to prevent users from getting to AI sites that we want to prohibit. On the Purview side, we're going to have the more of the scalpel side. We're going to recognize that the interactions that occur in AI solutions are a little bit different from the type of interactions that we would just want to just ban, to swing the hammer and cut it out entirely. But what is really fascinating is that the way that these two stacks have evolved over the last couple of years is to really build on that central column, where whether we're enacting the policies and the controls on the Defender or the Purview side, we do have unified incident, automated remediation. Advanced hunting is through all of it. You might even see a couple of my slides in here where it will call out that in order to detect against the incidents that have been found, or to query them, you're actually going to do that on the Defender side. So Microsoft has worked really, really hard to make sure that all of our signal data, all of our aggregation, all of our tracking, all of our hunting, all of our policy enforcement and everything is aligned to work through one kind of unified pane of glass. And that's been a really exciting development to watch happen over time. So going back to the more of the sword approach, we have used Defender for cloud apps for several years to detect the websites that our users can go to, or that they are going to make determinations about how much we want those users to use those websites, what controls we want to activate around them. And we can track and see that generative AI is actually a listed set of controls and websites that we can monitor in Defender for Cloud Apps. In fact, if we look in the Cloud App Catalog specifically for generative AI solutions, you'll see that there are 1,196 tracked and known generative AI platforms out there that Microsoft is keeping tabs on. And I'll talk a little bit about how they do that later on. But for right now, the point to understand here is that we can either block or allow things, or track them or monitor them, right? In my case, or actually in most cases, in all cases, sanctioned apps are those which your tenant explicitly trusts users to go to. For whatever reason, you've decided you trust this application. Unsanctioned apps, though, have a really fascinating capability that you can leverage in the Defender side, where you can actually take the applications and the websites that are listed as unsanctioned and feed them into Defender for Endpoints list of custom indicators. Once you have done that, you can then decide what's going to be the behavior at the endpoint where the user goes to these websites and these services, right? So by default, when you block or unsanction these websites, it creates these as indicators that are going to be block execution, and it's going to generate an alert. When your user then goes to that website on their device, they're going to get a smart screen message that's going to tell them it's blocked content, the website is blocked by your organization. Now that's the edge experience. If they're in Chrome, or if they're in one of the other known and tracked browsers, they're going to get a toast notification in Windows, and the browser will simply not deliver them there. Now, because I left that generate alert checkbox when I created the unsanctioned rule that or the custom indicator as a result of the unsanctioned rule, now I can actually see on the Defender dashboard that my user went to chatgpt.com, right? And that's it. So I can come in here and I can lock this down and I can block it so that all 1196 AI solutions are blocked. And as Microsoft adds more to their list, they'll just become blocked. I don't really want to do that. There's a few reasons why that might be too much. The reality is that we want to enable our users, right? We want to see them succeed, and if we just box them in all the time, we're probably not going to really deliver that user satisfaction that we want. And Chris, of course, you can get granular. You can decide you want to ban only a few. You can do them based on certain like website capabilities. Do they support the compliance concerns that you may have or whatever? That's all fine and well. That's still all on the sort approach, and you will probably want to leverage at least a little bit of the SOAR approach if you have the Defender XDR stack. But if we want to be more cautious with the way that we allow our users to approach AI solutions, more lead them instead of hem them in, right? We want to make sure that we have a great understanding of what are the types of behaviors they're going to do, what is the data that we have or that we own or that we're responsible for safeguarding? Where does that data live? What kind of content is in that data? And this, we're going to be doing all of our work on the purview side, although some of that purview capability will actually spill over into intra for conditional access policies to be able to leverage the signals and data controls. Some of it may spill into Intune when it comes to defining the policies and the ways that PCs can be configured over time. Some of it will spill back over into the Defender XDR side for that unified incident hunting and reporting. But the first thing that we generally want to do is we want to understand what is the data? What is the data that's going to be potentially fed into these AI solutions? And for that, we have a solution inside of the Purview stack called Data Security Posture Management. And there is a big brother version of that. That's DSPM for AI. But I like to start here because the first thing that it does is it tells me what data I have that is unprotected that may contain sensitive information. And that sensitive information is going to be built up of either detected sensitive information types, and there's over 300 that are built into Purview Stack, and you can add your own, and it can be based on complex math and character proximity and all kinds of fun stuff. Then there's also trainable classifiers where you can actually feed in large amounts of your proprietary corporate data to be detected to recognize similar behavior patterns or similar data types. And then we can feed that into all of our other policies as we go. But the first part is, what do I have? Where do I have it? In this particular environment, you can see I have a fair amount of unprotected data in OneDrive, some in Exchange, some in Teams, and some in SharePoint. So then what do we do with that? Well, the next part for me, for most organizations that I think are getting ready to look into AI solutions, is to decide a level of scalable sensitivity control. And in the purview side of things, that's under information protection as sensitivity labels. If you have heard me talk in the past, any of my outside on the bike videos, if you've seen our webinars in the past, if you've seen anything, we have hammered on sensitivity labels for a very long time. I've got a couple of blog posts that talk about like label strategies and all sorts of things, and we get deep into it. But we want to decide what are repeatable, easy buttons for our users to deliver sensitivity or protection for sensitive information in our environment. There are a few public schemas that are available. In my case, I've chosen to use overlapping nomenclature from both the TLP protocol, which is a public one that's out there you can consume no charge. It just exists for everybody to use. And then Microsoft also has a similar one that has similar behaviors with a different nomenclature. Ultimately, though, what you're going to have to decide is how do you define permissions on data? And for the old hats out there, that's rights management brought into the cloud and move forward. And then who should be able to consume, produce, print, download, do whatever with that? Are those permissions? At what scale? How long should they hold on to them? And then whether or not we want to do things like use dynamic watermarking, which is super cool because that closes the loop on the people who take the phone out and take a picture of the device, of the file. So once we have decided what our labels are going to be, we can then actually build those labels and simply define them based on what type of sensitive information they should protect. Then we can run a DSPM for AI, data security posture management for AI, data assessment. It looks back at that same data set that we saw in the DSPM section and sees what sensitive data and what labels are or should be applied to data that's inside our environment already. So now we've gone from just like, what data do I have, to what sensitivity is out there? Do I have anything that's already protected? Where do I go from here? And then we can also layer in, because we can track these sorts of things, right? We've already added our SWORD approach to the AI sites. We can actually get in and we can see, based on other policies that we can define, what are the applications, what are the agents, the AI-based apps and agents that our users are using. We can actually get reports on what is the amount of data that's out there, how many users, how many prompts, what kind of sensitive information is being detected in their prompts and responses. We are then much closer to being able to determine what it is that we actually need to do. Whoops, I know skipped too far forward. And we can also see, we can actually even build policies that will tell us exactly what those prompts are, right? So we can actually track prompts explicitly in Copilot over time to see what is it that the users are entering and what are the responses that they're getting back. And you can see that we also can track sensitive information types in both the prompts and responses. And I'm probably getting ahead of myself, but I'm really excited to see that we actually are getting to a point now where we can protect content in the documents, protect the prompt from receiving sensitive information type, protect the processing of Copilot from doing anything with that sensitive information type, and then prompt or protect the response from Copilot from actually delivering sensitive information back to the screen. So we've got protections leveraging those sensitive information types all the way through from one end to the other. So we can then get into workloads like insider risk management. And I actually really love this workload, not for the worry about, oh, is someone trying to steal my data and walk out the door, but because we can actually decide what kind of AI interactions we want to monitor and track and protect, right? So we can actually do things like, building in our standard Copilot experience protections, but we can actually take these protections out to other known enterprise AI sites, other unenterprisey type AI sites if we want to as well, and then take those controls and move them onto other parts of our experience. So now we can actually build not just don't go to this website. We can build not just don't put credit card numbers into ChatGPT. We can extend that to what are the types of behaviors that if we detect a user doing a significant amount of it indicates that maybe we have a risky or potentially unethical or potentially otherwise problematic use of these AI solutions. And all of those are different from each other. They are nuanced and they are different, but we can do all of them within the same pane of glass, all within the Purview workloads. When we get to taking all of those controls together and we start looking at what does data loss prevention look like in our environment, how do we extend that back out to either users' interactions with websites or behaviors on the actual desktop, we can leverage some of these workloads to produce canned and pre-packaged policies that we can simply turn on, detecting sensitive information added to websites or blocking sensitive information from risky users. So now not only are we taking all of the detections that we can do from the Purview side, but we're actually layering in identity risk patterns and signals to say, hey, this user, I don't trust the way that they've authenticated here. I don't trust that their credentials are secure. I don't trust that they are actually the ones operating that particular account from that device. Maybe I want to step up and say, in this particular instance, I don't want to allow this, this particular session to paste data into a generative AI solution. So when we get in and we look at what do these things look like under the hood, well, we can actually come down into the audit or restrict activities on devices. And there's a prepackaged thing called a sensitive service domain restriction that is built around generative AI websites. Now, you and I cannot edit what that is, and I'll show you in a minute what that looks like. But if you're ever worried that, well, Microsoft may have their finger on the pulse of the known ones, but I know about this new one and I'm pretty sure it's not on their list. Well, I'm going to show you two things. One is you can absolutely create your own sets of sensitive service domain restrictions that can include anything that you want to under the sun. And it's going to perform similarly to how the Defender side did it, but potentially without the reporting. You could just block users from going there. So you can see I've created a couple of custom lists on my own, one for social media, one for competitors, and you can decide what level of blockage you want to allow for that. So if block with override, I'm going to allow users to say, you know what, I really need to be able to get this data. Block, I'm not going to let them take this data there no matter what. Audit only, I'm going to track it. And all of this data that's tracked is tracked in our dashboards forever on the Purview side, but without generating the administrative alerts on the Defender side. So again, nuance. So what does it all look like? Well, I opened up a file on one of my Windows 365 devices for this user, and I put in a whole bunch of make-believe proprietary information about users and their phone numbers and their social security numbers, enough that it would trigger the alerts necessary to block these things from happening. I then protected my file with a sensitivity label that would cause this data to be encrypted and also use that dynamic watermarking feature. So even if the user is using this as expected, they're not going to be able to take this data and paste it into third-party solutions that I don't want them to. They're not going to be able to take a phone out of their pocket and take a picture of it and steal the data, because even if they do, that watermark's going to be sitting on this document forever. I'm going to see that it's internal data. I'm going to see when it was taken. But then I opened up ChatGPT, or I should say OpenAI, on the same device, and I tried to copy this brick of Excel fields into the "what can I help with" section. And Purview popped up and immediately said, we've identified you're pasting content that contains sensitive information, right? Now, I did give myself, as you saw in the previous slide, the ability to override this. And if I override that, that's going to be logged in the Activity and Content Explorer for the rest of forever. And I really do mean forever. Like, I've got logs going back 4 years on the Purview side, whereas, you know, since our security logs typically only go back 6 months. So this is really, truly long-term tracking. We have a lot of great data that lives out here forever. Now, I did mention that, you know, under that list of generative AI websites, it's all well and good to trust Microsoft and to know that you can't edit that list. But there is actually a searchable list out here, and you can see that when I created this deck, the date of the last modification date was a day or two before I made the deck. So I actually copied all of the documents, or all of the sites in the list here, and I put it into 4-point text in 15 columns. And I just barely had enough space at the end to show that, again, that was last updated a day or two before I made the deck. So, you know, it's unlikely that there are a lot of sites that they're not aware of and aren't adding that to their ongoing list of known AI websites. But again, you can absolutely add your own custom ones. You can come out here and you can search this website. You can see exactly what they're using right now to understand the current landscape of all of the AI solutions that are out there. So I don't usually do coming soon capabilities in webinars. I tend to save that for internal content. And I did already cover this, unfortunately, but one of my favorite things here is knowing that we do truly have that end-to-end coverage, right? From basically the moment the user thinks, ooh, I wonder if I can ask this, we got to be ready, right? So I mentioned that we can protect Copilot from receiving sensitive information based on, like, giving it 20 credit card numbers. I also mentioned that we can prevent Copilot from delivering a whole bunch of credit card numbers and social security numbers. But now we can actually, or we're getting the ability right now to build into these DLP policies the ability to prohibit Copilot from processing that content, right? So we can actually take a sensitivity label and we can say, Copilot not only can't take this and throw it out to the world, because it won't do that. Copilot will respect your security permissions and your sensitivity labels as you define them. And if you say it's internal only, Copilot will never let that data get out of your environment. But now we can actually say, don't even process the content that's behind that label, and don't even process queries about the content that's behind this. So there are a truly end-to-end, truly from the idea, from the moment that the person first thinks, I wonder if I can ask about this, we've got protections that go from one end to the other. And if they want to take it out and put it into a third-party solution, we can be super nuanced with the capabilities up and down the purview stack. And we can also be very specific and say, and you know what? There's just a whole host of these things that I don't ever want them going to. And we can defend that in the defender stack. And we get all of our unified alerting. We get all of our unified rule building. And we get all of the conditional access controls that can consume all of that data and make sure that users, if they are at elevated risk, or if we need to do adaptive protection because it appears that they're doing risky behaviors, we've got all of that through and through. And I don't even know what else to say. I mean, it's super duper exciting to be where we are right now with this. So with that, I'm gonna toss it back.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Adrian. Always insightful, and I always learn 5 new things whenever you present. So I appreciate the insight and the diligence in covering through all the areas within the sword and the scalpel that can help protect. At this point, would really like to, bring in our folks, our friends from Microsoft, Na and Juhi, to talk through a little bit, maybe more specifically around Copilot and some licensing questions. So I guess I'll want to pose a question to Na, Juhi. A common question that I hear around licensing, specifically from organizations using O365 or the business premium suites, is basically like, what am I missing, or what do I need to do in order to get ready for Copilot? We'd been chatting a little bit before we hopped on, and I heard you say good, better, best.
Yes.
Can you speak within that context of licensing a little bit more around Copilot and the discussion that Adrian kind of walked through today?
Absolutely. Thanks, John. So if you're on Office 365 or Business Premium, you've got a solid foundation, which includes MFA, conditional access, Defender for Business, Intune, and manual sensitivity labels. So that's a really great start. But here's where you're missing, here's what you're missing compared to E5. So with E5, you'll get risk-based conditional access and privileged identity management. So access adapts in real time. And then also you'll have advanced email protection. So with automated investigation and phishing simulation, you'll also have full endpoint detection and response. So that would include advanced hunting, live response, vulnerability management. There's also shadow IT control with Defender for Cloud apps, visibility into 400 plus SaaS apps. Then insider risk and advanced compliance tools. So think e-discovery and customer lockbox. And then last but not least, you will get cross-domain attack disruption. So XDR that connects identity, email, endpoints, and cloud. So bottom line is Business Premium is really a strong start for, I'll say, SMB customers. But if you want enterprise-grade security, you need E5 or the E5 security add-on. So that's how you go from a static protection to adaptive automated defense. So that good through best case scenario. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. It's kind of, I've been blown away over the last, decade on where Microsoft has taken their security tooling. And so that's a lot of great features and functionalities that you touched on, and super germane to the discussion today. Something within the context of Copilot specifically, I think a lot of the unmanaged, or the risks through unmanaged AI, data exfiltration, your data being used to train models. That's another question that kind of comes up. And I know that Copilot has something called enterprise data protection natively baked in. Juhi, could you talk a little bit more about EDP?
Yes, absolutely. The use of Copilot, M365 Copilot, and both Copilot Chat, it does involve, like those prompts that are entered by the users and those responses that are going to be generated by Copilot. So with EDP, which is also your enterprise data protection, the prompts and responses are going to be protected by the same contractual terms and those commitments that are already widely trusted by our customers for their email exchanges and their files that are already in SharePoint. So there's 5 key points to that. Your data is going to be secure. So we're here at Microsoft, we secure your data. We're going to help protect your data with encryption, both at transit and in rest. There's also like rigorous physical security controls that apply. And then there's also like data isolation between tenants that does apply. The second one is your data is private. So we're not going to use your data except as you instruct. So, our commitments to privacy include, that support for the GDPR, those EU data boundary commitments, the data protection addendum, and then also some of those ISO and IEC 27018 compliance. So all that is included as part of the enterprise data protection. And then your access controls and policies is always going to apply to Copilot. So just like Adrian mentioned before, Copilot will respect your identity model and permissions. It will inherit those sensitivity labels. It's going to apply your existing retention policies. It will allow the audit of interactions, and then also follow any of your existing administrative settings. And the specific controls and policies, this is something to keep in mind. They will vary depending on your underlying subscription plan. So whether you are on an E3 or an E5. And you're also going to be protected against those AI security and copyright risks. So we here are going to help safeguard, against those AI-focused risks, such as harmful content, those prompt injections. So all this capability is actually built into the EDP as part of you using Copilot. And then the additional, concerns that customers have around this copyright, there's also protected material detection, and there's also, the customer copyright commitment that's a part of the EDP. And last but the most important one is your data is not going to be used to train any of the foundational models. So Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat, it does use the user's context to create those relevant responses, and it will use Microsoft Graph data, but it's going to be consistent with our other Copilot offers. So the prompts and responses and data that's going to be accessed is not going to be used any of the any of those foundational models or those LLMs. So that's what ADP entails. And as part of Copilot Chat within your existing licensing, you do have access to Copilot Chat, which again you are protected by EDP if you were to use it. So that's kind of what EDP is. Back to you, John.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Juhi. That's super insightful and really paints the picture of the commitment to securely empowering a productive workforce that Microsoft is with Copilot. So really good stuff, and appreciate you guys joining today. And with that, I think we have one slide, and it's just thank you. So as we wrap up, I'll quickly recap some key takeaways from the session. We discussed critical importance of visibility and control over shadow AI, making sure your org knows what tools are in use and how data is being managed. We highlighted how Microsoft solutions can help you address these challenges with confidence, and hopefully clarified some licensing options and practical steps you can take right now to get started on your governance and AI journey. For those of you who want to revisit today's content, the webinar recording will be available soon on our YouTube channel. You'll also receive registration links and follow-up materials directly in your email inbox. But with that, a big thank you to our presenters and to everyone who joined us today. If you'd like to see a demo tailored specifically to your organization or have questions on where to get started, please don't hesitate to reach out our way. We're here to help you navigate the future of AI and securely enable a productive workforce for your org. So thanks again, y'all. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.